I'm Heidi Tolliver Walker with What They Think, and I am here with Chris Clarke, Chief Technology Officer for Georgia Printco in Lakeland, Georgia. And we are going to talk about LiftERP and your installation of it. I'm super excited because I know you have some great insights. And so just really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, and as she said, I'm Chris Clarke with Georgia Printco. We've had this in full implementation for probably a little over a year now, and we have seen some good benefits from it. So,
Well, first, tell me a little bit about Georgia Printco. Like, how long have you guys been around? What markets are you serving? What types of customers do you have?
so we are a wholesale only print provider. We've been doing it since 2001. We service much of the United States, some of Canada, down into the Bahamas. I would say that's the majority of our customers.
So tell me a little bit about what was happening when you started looking for an ERP solution. What prompted that search?
So we had tried for many years to get out of what we were in. We were using Microsoft Access. We had an Excel file basically programmed as a calculator to come up with the pricing. That did have its benefits and its downsides, but basically we needed something that we could kind of control because everything not being in one system, people can make errors. It takes longer to make a work order or a quote and get it back to somebody. There can be crazy price variances, and from somebody like me, I need to know, all right, if I move the price here, how is that affecting things? And I can't do that if everybody's just deciding what they want to charge for something. So since we had that problem before, and we no longer have that problem, it kind of makes management a little easier.
So did you look at multiple systems before you decided on the Lyft ERP?
We had tried with another company. We had looked at other places, but I had tried with one company and actually went down the rabbit hole of configuring it and everything, and they just didn't have what we needed. It was very similar as far as like an all-in system where there was a local database that was going to be serviced and also like a web store that was attached to that. Their product was a little too slow and would not work for the customization that we do. There was just no way to make it operate properly. And so we gave up on that, even though I spent over a year just trying to integrate that by itself. A lot of wasted time outside of the experience, which then helped me kind of organize this and put this together. So I guess it wasn't all for nothing.
But they call that the sunk cost fallacy that you did not fall prey to. So that's
Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
impressive. So when you were looking at Lyft ERP, what about it really grabbed your attention and made you sit up and say, oh, like this might actually work for us?
We had just bought the Durst printer. We started looking into the database system because the two interface with each other, and we did want something that actually belongs together, not just a system that's kind of cobbled together here and cobbled together there to make like one system. We wanted something that kind of came out of the box that way. There's stuff where the software can help you kind of program the jobs coming down the chute and move them on certain materials and then kind of say, okay, this roll's ready to go, put it on the printer. And we were looking for that, and we were also looking for something to get out of Access because our business had well outgrown that. And it was crashing all the time, which isn't good either. And we started losing data, so we kind of rushed to get into this, and it's been a lot better.
So tell me about. I know that you've had some. It's really helped you out with like when your sales folks were pricing things one way, and then you had all kind of mess going on in there.
Well, that ends up being the problem. So if the price of my 12 ounce goes up and say I have to increase pricing on 12 ounce, well, what happened a lot of times, if somebody referenced an old quote, they would just take the pricing off of the old quote and put it in because I don't want to go over here and enter everything in and then go back over here and enter. So they're in an email and they're reading the email, they're going over to an Excel file and they're trying to input it, and then they're going from the Excel file over into the database, and it's just too many too many steps to where now it's like it drag and drops, it automatically puts the price in there, so it's what I want to charge for the item at the time, not whatever they got charged back in, 5, 6 years ago. That helped a lot from like the control of that and again the management side of things because I need to know, is something selling this high or why is my cost of goods bad? And if without me going back and looking at every single quote, I can't do that in my old system. But in the new system, I'm allowed to. It can tell me if somebody has changed the price or not done whatever. If they edit something, I can tell, which is another great thing.
So what would you estimate that functionality has saved you annually?
It took our cost of goods probably right now, I would say it took at least 4% off of our cost of goods. At least.
In an environment where, every tiny percent, where the profitability is won and lost on the margins, that's huge.
Well, we run on a shoestring budget and we have forever. It's always little tweaks. It might be 5 cents on a job that makes the money at the end of the year. So every little bit counts. And when you're talking about a huge shift, considering what our company used to do with an average cost of goods compared to what we do now, it's substantial.
How much of a culture change is that to get your team members to think differently and to accept a very different way of doing pricing?
Sometimes that can be a little bit like pulling teeth. I won't lie to you because a lot of things came out of the woodworks whenever we changed systems. When everything had to go through me then to be approved for a pricing change, I started seeing a lot, especially in a rigid department where people weren't quoting things properly and they were kind of giving away a lot of stuff, which then again, it blows up our cost of goods because, you're selling a piece of PVC that we might sell once, twice a month, and I have to throw away half the sheet, and you only sold the job for this little tiny bit. So I basically gave somebody whatever that was, or paid them to take it off my hands. So it did fix that. It was just hard at first, but I would say within probably 2 months, we kind of had everybody more on the same page with how things are to be priced, and we were allowed to add procedures to things that help smooth out our production, which is another thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me about that smoothing out production.
We used to run a lot. Again, we did hand jamming, so it's more like a pencil paper type situation, and we ran paper all through the building. But now that now we have due dates programmed by material basically in our process. Instead of running off of any enhanced date that somebody would put on a piece of paper, which is expensive, when you're taking 16 foot off of a roll of material to put something on the printer, which again, this is how it affects our cost of goods. So we ended up putting in programs because of Lift that allowed us to manage when people were putting that on or were putting on rush dates, and we could kind of standardize certain materials and how long it would take to get out of the building. And then if somebody wanted it, they could pay for, the additional rush charge associated with that. But for the most part, it helps smooth it out to where we're not putting a bunch of rolls on of different materials. When the roll kind of fills up, we can put it on and we can go.
And specifically how in your production, it just in terms of, is it throughput, just sort of talk me through a little bit where those, the quantitative savings can be from that efficiency you're getting now.
Again, this is going to go back to cost of goods as far as kind of being able to manage better the materials and how much square footage is going through and being able to see when a roll is up next. It also helped because it allowed the language to be the same throughout the company, which was another big thing. And it's all clearly written out. So everybody has computers at their given stations, so they get a job list. And that job list that needs to be done every day, they can see everything and they see it at the step it needs to be done. So then they process it and it goes to the next step so that every piece is getting hit and we're not missing things.
It also sounds like now that everything is standardized and it's transparent and I know that the interface is very, visual, that helps with training, I would imagine, as well.
Yes. And now I do think the way that we implemented it helped with training. when I came here, I didn't know anything really about the print industry. I knew that my father had been in it for many years. I kind of knew a little bit about it, but it wasn't like I couldn't tell you what, whatever IJ40 was at the time, right? And that's like a very common material around here. But I wouldn't know, and I didn't know to order it like that, nor do I know its purpose. And when we have like 80 some odd materials that we produce in different laminates and different ways that they can get finished, it helped that we could program the system in a way that allowed things to be condensed. It wasn't the Wild West out here. People don't have to think so much about what's going on. They can say, okay, well, I need a banner outside. Okay, well, here's my options. And then what can I do to that banner? Well, I can put hems, grommets, webbing, whatever, rope, like all the stuff that you're allowed to do is listed on that material instead of, if somebody were to try to put a hem on an adhesive for whatever reason, it doesn't allow that. We wouldn't be making that mistake.
Yeah, I know when previous conversation you and I had, you had said like the time to onboard a new employee had been cut by about 25%. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say definitely. Especially again with it being categorized, because who has time to really know, how long would it take you to figure out what we can do with 80 different raw materials and what their uses are and like how we would finish it. So now everything in our system is set up that way. It allows the CSR to spend more time maybe talking and getting to know people than it does to, put in quotes or have to go ask questions about what we're doing or how this is supposed to work or what material do I use for this. It's already kind of laid out.
If somebody else is in your position and they're looking, for an ERP solution, what kind of advice would you give them in terms of how to filter through the options and how to think about this? What would you be? What are your advice?
It's going to be a lot. You're going to have to dive in. You'll probably make mistakes that you will inevitably have to go back and fix. Because I don't know if it's 100% smooth, but I would try to categorize things or figure out what your needs are and like really spend a lot of time in the planning process of how you want to go about it or how you price things. Because there's plenty of different ways to price something in Lift. So I would figure out whatever way works best for you or what you would like to see. And then maybe even try that out and see what that looks like as far as, like start with 12-ounce banner and totally configure it, right? And then see if the way that pricing works and the way that the costing works for your business model, and then go from there. But everybody's really helpful. We had a real good time with everybody. I'm actually meeting with Matt tomorrow. He's going to help me with updating some pricing, because we're going to update some pricing on our finishing options. But he, got me a meeting real quick, and so I'll be able to update that tomorrow.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this and being so candid about everything. I'm sure that viewers will find that extraordinarily helpful. And of course, there's a lot more from your perspective in the product spotlight that's on whattheythink.com.
Yeah.
So again, I want to thank you again for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.